Welcome to the ThinkTech's virtual meetups for the summer season, an initiative organized by the Saudi Ministry of Communications and Information Technology. ThinkTech aims to create a stimulating digital environment and to spread digital awareness about emerging technologies. In this optic, we are happy to introduce you to a series of meetups focused on emerging technologies. Today, we have the session, A Practical Way for CIOs to Manage IT Modernization. My name is Christian Stöhr, and I will be your moderator on this session. I'm a partner with McKinsey based in Abu Dhabi and lead our McKinsey technology work in the Middle East. I'm joined by the Group CIO of Emirates MBD, Miguel Rio Tinto, who is responsible for all of IT in the group, and my senior partner colleague Sven Blumberg from Düsseldorf, who leads McKinsey technology in EMEA. Welcome, Miguel and Sven. Miguel, would you like to introduce yourself slightly longer than the one sentence I honored you with now?
Yes, thank you very much, Christian. It's a pleasure being here. So I'm Miguel Rio Tinto. I'm the Group CIO of Emirates MBD. I joined the group about 4 years ago, exactly to take charge of the IT transformation of the group. As Group CIO, I cater to the entities, the business units we have in the UAE, but also in 8 other locations around the world, from the KSA to Turkey, Egypt, and so on. Very happy to be here again, and let's move forward.
Thank you, Miguel. Sven, I also want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself.
Thanks a lot, Christian. So my name is Sven Blumberg. I'm a senior partner based out of Germany. I lead our core technology, McKinsey technology practice in EMEA, and globally what we call IT modernization. So I work with clients on their technology transformation across the globe. I work with clients in financial services. I work with clients in the governance space. And I'm very happy to be here and share some of the experiences that we have made to help CIOs transition to the new normal.
Thank you, Sven. Thank you, Miguel. We're very honored to have you here with us today and share your views on the IT modernization. So I'd love to start a little bit with an overarching view, right? Sven, how has the overall situation for CIOs changed with COVID, right? Have you seen companies responding to the crisis, and if so, how?
Yeah, thanks, Christian. So let me start by saying, like, COVID is first and foremost a humanitarian crisis. Yeah, so everyone was first focused on keeping all the people safe. Yeah, so that was obviously the first priority. Yeah, so and then I think like the crisis hit all of us. Yeah, some industries have seen like major drops. Yeah, so like it's not a good time to be in transport and logistics. Yeah, so there you have like massive challenges from the business side there. But you also have like other businesses that when you're in the telecommunication space, yeah, so that have seen like massive bandwidth increase, usage increase, etc. Yeah, so it's depending a bit on like in which industry you are that you have specific challenges. But after the initial phase, yeah, where you were forced to think through how do I keep everyone safe and how do I keep the operation stable, yeah. So I think what we have seen is that a lot of industries are facing this accelerated digitization. Digital was on the agenda for many years, yeah, so for many of the companies and governments. Yeah, so but what is very clear, like this crisis has like accelerated this massively. Yeah, so many people speak about that you have seen changes in months that normally take years. Yeah, so how we do remote education, digital education, how we do remote work. Yeah, so that was a myth that this is completely impossible. Now it is possible for many months. Customers require face-to-face interactions. Yeah, so and we have seen now that it works without this. Yeah, so I think that there was a massive industry change. Yeah, and a massive change that requires also technology. And also when we look forward, when we look into the recovery and what is on the horizon, technology plays an important role here. Now, there's one challenge. Yeah, so typically the way how technology has been perceived in many companies is like it's a cost item. Yeah. So therefore, like we manage the cost somehow, and we try to get the best out of that. Therefore, you have seen that like only like a minor spend has been really on value creation drive. Therefore, massive amount went to cost to run cost. So that's something that is changing now. Yeah. So with that, a lot of challenges also come. Yeah. So like, how do we pivot the talent? Yeah. So how do we pivot towards a different model? Yeah, focusing on the right priorities. Yeah. So just to mention a couple of things. Yeah. So digital channels capabilities. Yeah. So we also beyond the typical apps and online pages, web pages that we see, the ecosystem is a big topic. How do we leverage data and analytics much more? Launch new products, yeah, so that are forcing us, given the remote environment. And lastly, also, how do we accelerate all of that? Yeah, so because the acceleration was there, yeah, so but given the market condition, a further acceleration is needed. So I think it's exciting times, but it's also challenging times, because when you now think about the role of the CIO, it becomes even more complex because you're at the heart of this disruption. Yeah, so you need to manage this. You need to manage your legacy in many cases. You need to manage your people. Yeah, in this very strange setup, and also all the stakeholders.
Thank you, Sven. Miguel, let's move over to you, because Sven just mentioned you're at the heart of this complexity. Maybe you give us a bit of a background of where you started from when COVID happened, and then what has changed with COVID.
So COVID is, as you know, for all of us, both a challenge. So from my perspective as the CIO of the group, we've asked with the blink of an eye to send about 14,000 people home. And if you think about how you manage IT, how you architect IT, from how even the networking and the security setup, you set it up as you are in a fort, so you protect the outside from coming in. Now suddenly you have 14,000 people outside. So it is a very complex exercise on how do you really move these people home and continue to operate business as usual as a bank throughout all these geographies, and that was a challenge. I think that at Emerson MBD, and I can go then a little bit into that, the fact that we were preparing an IT transformation for 3 years before COVID hit us allowed us very quickly to have, after in March, April, we had only 400 people maximum at one time on premises. And this includes everybody that was needed on premises to keep the business working, and all the other 14,000 people were working from home. And you don't do that easily unless you already had at a quite mature level of digitization, because it's not just the business processes, even IT as IT operations, development, and so on, all of that had to move home. So it was a huge challenge when it happened, and it demanded a lot from the IT team and from the CIO and the IT team, from the bank overall, but from the IT team in particular. But then it's also an opportunity. So if someone had any doubt that businesses are technology companies at their heart, especially banks are technology companies, and increasingly even I know that there are CIOs out there in this meeting that are not bank CIOs, they are other sector CIOs, but increasingly technology plays an important part. And in the case of a bank, which is what we manage here, our business is actually at the core, it's technology. And that was very, very well understood by the ExCo many years before this happened. It's just a validation of that. So if it's not just about being able and having the technology to handle this, but again, from the business processes, the business strategy, are you really able to service your customers across retail, across wholesale, with all the types of servicing transactions, all the types of sourcing, so originating a credit card, originating a personal loan? Can you really do this in a context where you really want STP processes handled from the customer directly to the systems without a lot of processes in the middle? Again, the maturity there is what I believe now will make it or break for the successful banks in our case versus the non-successful ones.
Thank you, Miguel. I think that was quite insightful, and I'd love to go a bit deeper into this. But let's give maybe Sven one chance to help us understand a little bit of how you would recommend CIOs to best think about IT modernization now that we've established that IT is becoming more and more critical. What are the challenges? How do you think through this?
Yeah, thank you. So I think like we have done by now roughly, I would say something like 600 interviews with CIOs across the globe, of leading companies, of government entities, etc. And we have formed some kind of an idea like what it takes, yeah. So nowadays, yeah. So especially the acceleration in digital that we have seen, the COVID situation, yeah, to be successful. The first vector is around the new role of the reimagined role of technology. Yeah, so because at the heart, also as Miguel said, yeah, so many businesses are turning really to technology businesses, yeah, so technology companies, yeah, so we call that tech forward business strategy, yeah, so how do you make technology at the heart of what you do, yeah. The second thing, what we have seen is we need a much more integrated technology management, yeah, so there were a lot of silos that that successful companies needed to break up. Yeah, so between product, platform, and how you spend money on this. Yeah, so how do you steward also the overall cost. The third thing is then around user experiences. Miguel also mentioned this as a core at the heart. Yeah, so of how you think about that. This is at the heart, it's obviously a design thing. Yeah, so but this needs to be at the core of like how we think about technology. Yeah, so if we don't come from the users, from the customers, yeah, so we for sure will not spend on the right things. So that is like the first vector, yeah, the new role of technology. The second vector that we have seen is technology delivery. Yeah, so and we see besides the remote working, yeah, so there's a lot of reinvention happening. Yeah, so one of the things I'm sure Miguel also made some experiences with is agile at scale. Yeah, so how do we business and technology work better together, faster delivery, etc. The second area here is the next gen infrastructure. Yeah, so how do we move to cloud? Yeah, so really to cloud, no ops, platform as a service, and make use of all the great technology that is out there. The third one in this is really at the heart for my work also, that is engineering excellence. Yeah, so how do you bring in top talent? How do you keep top talent? How do you make them successful? What is required for them to become productive is really something that I think also in our region here, yeah, so is really critical to get right. The last thing is obviously partnerships. Yeah, so with who are our partners, who are our providers? Yeah, so how do we structure these partnerships? Yeah, so much more capability focused, outcome based, rather than like the time and material based that we see a lot at the moment. Turning this into the right kind of partnership approach is something that is super important, as many of the CIOs of the 600 that we spoke to told us. The last one, and let me not go too deep into this, is the foundation, yeah, as we say. Yeah, so what do you do with your architecture? Yeah, so how do you move to an open architecture, leverage microservices and APIs, the new patterns that we are seeing here? How do you next look into data? Yeah, enable advanced analytics. Yeah, so which is very, very critical. And last but not least, really not least, is then the cyber topic. Yeah, so how do we keep that all safe? Yeah, so but also with upcoming regulations, how do we make sure that data is private? Yeah, so these are like the 10 areas and, along the 3 vectors that I mentioned that most of these 600 people are highlighting that are the make or break. Yeah, so you don't need to get everything right. Yeah, so but you need to work on all the 3 vectors. Yeah, otherwise you will miss something. Yeah.
Miguel, this was the perfect handover to you, right? Like, how did you start your transformation? You mentioned you were already on the journey. Did you focus on all three vectors, or how did you think about it in your specific case? And how did you potentially get the board and your exco to actually invest?
I think I was lucky because so Emirates NBD since long ago has been an innovator with technology. It is a bank that is quite known for putting out innovative services, products and services based on supported on technology. And that understanding comes from the top. So the exco is starting with the CEO. They really understand that they are running a technology business. Of course, it's banking. There are many facets to banking beyond technology, but at the core, you are a technology business. And so two things that are clear, and this is where we started our journey about 3-4 years ago. One is, even if we were innovative, we were launching quite nice products and services out there, but we were not fast enough. So we wanted to be faster in launching those products and services. We wanted to be able to launch them without incurring on a lot of technology complexity, building reliable services, building services that from the user experience, they're not broken processes, they're actually well thought of end-to-end user journeys. And so all of that we needed to change, so that there was an aspect to what they thought about and what they launched 3-4 years ago, which is what we call an IT transformation, which is, okay, how do we change that? Our IT operating model, the way we organize ourselves internally to IT, the way we engage with business, our IT architecture, our IT infrastructure, the security around all of this. What initiatives have to be put forward so that I transform myself on the IT front? And then the other area is an understanding that all this transformation, it is not a self-fulfilling transformation. It is not just for the purpose of the IT transformation. It is there to cater to a digital transformation, which is a more business-led strategic view. The understanding that customers are migrating to direct channels in banking, they're using mobile apps, online banking, corporates are integrating with the systems of the bank. And so the question there is, if you think about everything a bank does, again, all the services it provides and the servicing that has to be provided beyond the branch, beyond the physical channels, in the direct channels. But more importantly, where in the case of our business in banking, we are not very good at, which is the sourcing, the sales of selling and fulfilling business products. How can I really move these journeys from typically human-assisted journeys? I'm not just talking on the front end, on the physical channels, but even on the back end. How do I move that to completely STP technology-supported journeys? And that is a challenge. So if you look at these things, so the IT transformation and the digital transformation, they are facets, so they are sides of the same coin. They cannot go one without the other. And it's the alignment between these two that makes the success of, I think, the companies that are going to win in this digital world. Now, three years ago, we actually started this two-pronged journey. Again, in the IT transformation area, where I'm leading that transformation, it's a more technology-centered transformation. There, our thinking was very easy. So it was very simple. So if you think about who's doing this now, right? Who's actually having a technology operating model, technology platform which is flexible, where we can deliver services fast, we can deploy fast, it can scale, it is resilient. So you typically look at the cloud natives now. And if you look at these guys, I remember an interview in the early days of Amazon where Jeff Bezos was running his shop out of an Oracle database. So these guys didn't start as they are now. They actually went through a journey. They started using the same stacks that we had in technology, and they evolve. Now, so what we did was a little bit of thinking around what they do right in IT, and trying to put those learnings into place for the bank. And this is where we are now. We are on the third year of a massive IT transformation. And then on the digital side, a CEO mandated drive to move everything STP to the direct channels. And then I can talk a little bit what that entails, but this is then where your ability to put services fast on the channels with fantastic user experience and user interfaces, with data-driven models and insights that take the decisions and replace the manual underwriters for compliance, for risk, and so on. All of that is then enabled by a business-led digital transformation. Both of these elements, IT and digital transformation, they have to go hand in hand.
Miguel, I love this. Thank you very much. Help me understand a little bit, because I'm pretty sure many CEOs are wondering, what is the first step, right? If I do everything at the same time, I might have to sacrifice stability or hire, I don't know, twice the amount of people I currently have. How did you think through this journey, right? So what did you start with, and maybe give some insights of how to think through this?
So I'll focus on the IT transformation. So how do you transform IT, and all these elements that I was just describing, on how you integrate with business, how you do that business IT working model, how you do that, the architecture transformation, how you really learn from the modern architectures around microservices, around omni-channel, around data and big data, and so on. Also infrastructure. How do you have the seamless capability of cloud native stacks and infrastructure at your disposal, even if you don't go to public cloud? How do you have that? How can you have that same flexibility as the cloud natives have? And again, how do you organize and so on? So what was done? So again, as a CIO, and I think that all CIOs know and relate to what I'm saying now. Unfortunately, IT is not about one thing that you do right, which is like a silver bullet, and suddenly you're there. So unfortunately, it's the combination of hundreds of different aspects of IT that brought together consistently then make you a well-performing or a benchmark performing organization. And the problem, as you correctly point out, what do you do first, and so on. So in this case, I think it was, again, driven by the CEO, by the ExCo, the decision to look, you cannot touch just one lever in IT. You have to touch all the levers, or else you're not going to get the end product that you want. So I'm not just going to focus on big data, or I'm not just going to focus on microservices, or I'm not just going to focus on cloud. Okay, you have the leeway to touch any single lever in IT to do this transformation. That was, I think, a very important principle, which is this is not a piecemeal transformation that will only get you halfway, which is if you launch a cloud program, that's nothing. That gives you some flexibility on how you deploy virtual machines, but what about the content, the applications that run off them? What about the software development lifecycle? What about the agility of setting up teams, agile teams, and so on? So we got the full end-to-end authorization to go and touch every single lever in IT. The second one was, we will fund your program very, very well. So the banks set apart about 1 billion dirhams for the IT transformation. So having a well-funded program is important. And then the last point is okay, then you have to understand, what do you do first, what do you do next, and here on the last point, which is the planning and the organization, there are again 3 elements to it. One is so the first one is, you cannot do these transformations in 10 years. You have a limited time where you can have really focus and transform. You cannot do this. You cannot sustain such a big exercise for 5 years even. So we really put ourselves to doing this in 36 months, and we committed to a plan where we would have deliverables. We call them epics instead of phases, just to be aligned with the agile methodologies and agile nomenclature. So designation. So we had 4 epics, 36 months to arrive at the end of this transformation. The second element is on people. So in order to start such a journey, and people was one of the key pillars of our transformation as well. But in order to start, you need a core team that can actually kickstart this transformation. If you don't have the core capabilities around these new areas like microservices, data and big data platforms, agile way of working, it's impossible for you to start because you're transforming, but you don't have the know-how internally. So we did some replacement of talent. We brought in, just to start the transformation, we brought in about 50 people that then helped us then kickstart that transformation. But overall, just on this talent and people front, which I can go a little bit more on detail if we go into there. During 3 years, we ended up replacing about half of our organization. So half of our staff that was there end of 2017 beginning of 2018 is no longer there. So we had a massive talent scouting and talent staffing effort. So this is the second thing, and then of course there is a sequence that you should take to do these things. So for example, if you don't have the underlying infrastructure elements there, you cannot have microservices. If you don't have microservices, you cannot have omni-channel. And then if you want to do application development, you need to have a first set of teams already trained and prepared on agile. Okay, so all these elements, so a well-sequenced program is extremely important with well-defined milestones. So around these 5 pillars that I just touched, so business IT working model, IT architecture, IT infrastructure, internal operating model, security, we had about 100 individual initiatives that were laid out around these 36 months. And we are now in the last leg of that. But having a well-defined plan with well-defined deliverables, well orchestrated over time, but focused and very limited in time is absolutely critical. I would just add another one, which is important. And this was, I think it was something that is a critical success factor that was ensured by the ExCo as well, which is while you transform, you really have to tone down new demand from the business at the same time. So you cannot keep investing on the legacy platforms and transforming to the new ones. So some brokering of that has to happen. And fortunately for me, I got tremendous help from the ExCo, from the executive committee of the bank, from the business leaders and from the CEO in managing that brokering between the need to continue to develop the business and the same time the need to transform and focus on the transformation, which a lot of transformations fail because of this, because they take too long. And so business at some point cannot wait anymore. And then you just sidetrack and the focus goes again to investing on the legacy platforms. So in a nutshell, that's it.
Perfect, Miguel. Thanks a lot. I think I would love to spend, after Ask Sven, maybe 1 or 2 questions to go into more detail of some of these aspects, like people, the challenges, right, the key success factors. But looking over to you virtually, Sven, what are then typical key success factors you see, maybe also beyond banking, right? What is required to make a digital transformation successful?
Yeah. I think like a lot of what Miguel was talking about resonates very well with me. Yeah. So I will come back to your question, I promise. Yeah. So, but let me also talk a little bit about like a couple of anti-patterns that we saw from the interviews that we did with the CIOs. Because, like as Miguel said, there are no silver bullets. Yeah. So, and that is one of the things that we have seen over and over again. Yeah. So you can't just like cookie cutter approach, take what works in Miguel's case, take it to another organization and hope that it works. Yeah, so the themes are the same more or less, yeah, but this is much more about the how than the what. Yeah, so Yeah, so I think like we are all clear. Let's start with the why. Yeah, so I think we are all sold on that. Yeah, the what is also clear nowadays. Yeah, so but it's much more on the how you do things. Yeah, so and some of the anti-patterns. Yeah, so we'll not go in all the details behind that. Yeah, so that we have seen is number one was force-fitting technology. Yeah, so like I have this amazing thing here, or I have this amazing partner that we can bring in, this amazing piece of technology. Yeah, so and trying to bring that in. Yeah, so that's something that we have seen and heard a couple of times. Yeah, that in the end doesn't cut the deal. Yeah, so you need to be much more careful. Like, can we ramp up the talent ourselves? Yeah, so it's great when this piece of technology is great and it's like the best on the planet. But like, if I don't have the talent that I can run it myself, I will not be successful in scaling it afterwards. It will never leave the pilot stage. The second thing that we have seen, and I think like Miguel touched on this when he spoke about the epics. Yeah, so we see many times these like still big system replacements. Yeah, so let me do this 5 years program. Yes, and miraculously afterwards everything will be good. Yeah, so because like as we discussed in the beginning, yeah, so we're in times that are accelerating, compressing, etc. Yeah, so these things are hard to do nowadays. Yeah, so now I'm not saying like every project can be done in like 2 years or whatever. Yeah, so but a couple of CIOs that we talked to in GEM, in other industry, government organizations, they basically said like the one thing that helped them is like cut it into small pieces. Yeah, so carve out small functionality pieces. Yeah, so bring them to a modern platform. Yeah, so because with that you can try, you can see that it works, that your talent is able to handle that. You manage the risk of the transition much better, etc. Yeah, so that's the second thing. Yeah, so going away from these big system replacements, yeah, so into manageable pieces. The third one, I come back over and over again to talent. Yeah, so moving to an engineering culture, which means like I move away a bit from manager culture. Yeah, so you have this in many organizations still this. If you want to be successful part, you need to move into the PowerPoint level. Yeah, so that basically means like many of the people that are extremely productive and are like your best people, yeah, for them to have a future in the company that like gives them also better pay, etc. Yeah, so they need to move out of where they are best. Yeah, so that's it. Again, it's an anti-pattern. Yeah, so to having too many managers. Yeah, so yeah, and not enabling the right value creation for the people through your career path. Now let me talk. You asked about success factors. I now answer something else. Yeah, because I felt like also what Miguel was highlighting. Yeah, so you can learn typically more from things that go wrong. Yeah, so and I think that is something that most of the CIOs that we spoke to highlighted. Yeah, so there are a couple of more anti-patterns, but these are very interesting anti-patterns. Now the success factors. I think number one, start with the why, the strategy. Yeah. So what is the biggest bang for the buck? Yeah. So where in the strategy, yeah. So can I enable most? Yeah. So that sounds easier than it is in the end. Yeah. So because like we have all these big ideas, etc. Yeah. So how do you break that down? Yeah. So in which piece of technology and which piece can really maximize the return on investment without like again doing a 3-year program and hoping that everything comes at the end. The second thing is, and that is a hard thing to do. Yeah, so that is the federating a bit the transformation. Yeah, and setting up these like joint business and IT teams and enabling them. Yeah, so letting them take these decisions themselves. Yeah, so and that's I think again, yeah, so it's a big misconception, big myth behind agile. Yeah, so that doesn't mean they can do whatever they want. Yeah, so agile actually means like you're very strict on what you can do. Yeah, and what you cannot do. Yeah, so that's even more important. Yeah, but like culturally that I've seen, like especially in our region, being really tough. Yeah, so delegating down. Yeah, so and letting them do how they think is the best. Yeah, so pretty tough. Yeah, but it's a key success factor because like our business is so complex nowadays. Yeah, that you can't hardly oversee everything. Yeah, so that's a key thing. Then it's about like KPIs, management, attention. Yeah. So what is it that we should look at? Yeah. So where are we? Yeah. So are we getting the right payback for what we are doing, etc. Yeah. So that's the third area that I've seen being extremely important when it comes to success factors.
Perfect. Thank you, Sven. I think that leaves us lots of questions and it's perfect playback back to you, Miguel. I think Sven mentioned talent probably 15 times. And I remember you also said you started out with half of the people, let's put it differently, half of the people remained with you started with. And you said there was a big shift in how you managed the whole people dimension. Can you elaborate a little bit on how you managed that transition and how you dealt with the culture situation and the scarcity of talent in general?
Yeah, let me link the talent question also with the way of the organization and operating model. So a lot of what we do in IT needs input from different disciplines. So I need the solution architect, I need the security architect, I need the UX UI designer, I need the requirements, I need the testing, you know. So the way we've solved this in the past is to have handovers between teams. Okay, so there is the requirements phase, so business is involved. Let me now hand over this to the build team. The build team will build it. Now let me hand this over to the testing team again, and so on. And these handovers, sign-offs. If you want to be sure that architecture is aligned, let's bring this to the architect review board and then approve it there, and so on. And one of the things that you can learn from the cloud natives is that if you really want to push for speed and at the same time not compromise on quality and resilience and so on. So the only way you can solve this is if you push the teams to really be self-governing on these things, not requiring. So if you bring all these functional disciplines together, so if you bring the solution architect together with the product owner, the product manager, if you bring the UX UI designer, if you bring them close together in teams, and then you no longer require these handovers to happen, because if you build these teams which are cross-functional, and you find a way of them working together, which is converging to the end product, to a common objective, then you've solved it. There's no other way to solving it except pushing this responsibility, the need for them to be self-sufficient and to be self-governing, and then to deliver against an objective and an end product. And this is what agility is all about. When we talk about, okay, let's go agile, the need for agile is really how do you keep intact the cross-functional expertise, but at the same time align everybody to a delivery objective, you know? And then how do you push the decision making to the team so that then they can be self-sufficient? They don't have to go to an architecture review board because the solution architect is part of the team. You don't need to go and do a handover to the testing team because the testers, the test engineers are with the team as well. So that you don't need to get requirements from a requirements business analyst because the business analyst and the product manager are within the team as well. So if you manage to bring these guys together and push the decision-making to them, and then you have very good functional people that take the responsibility across these functions, then you have a winning team. And the power of these teams is huge. The speed at which they can do without breaking actually the decision-making on the functional expertise, the how you do it, it's huge. Now, in order to do that, this is where talent is really an issue. So if you look at one of these agile teams that we build, we have currently about 60 agile teams in IT working in this way. And if you think about these guys, typically before COVID, they were around a table. Now they are around a Teams meeting. So they virtually are in a team room in Teams, in Microsoft Teams. But if you think about what is required for these teams to operate, you really need a different breed of person. Because if you look at these teams, so if you look at the solution architect, the test engineer, the tech lead, the UX UI designer, their bosses are actually not in the team. The boss, the guy that functionally is responsible for the solution architects, is actually not in the team. The boss of the solution architect is not the product manager. So in fact, around this table, nobody is line reporting to anybody. Now, imagine having that. So how do you then get things done? No, it takes a different breed, a different culture, and especially so. This I've learned because I moved to Dubai about four years ago, and this I learned, and I come from a South European culture as well, which is very similar to that. There is a culture of the hard manager, the telling manager, the manager that tells you what to do and controls what you do. It doesn't work in Agile. It doesn't work at all, because the manager, the guy that you line report to, is not there. So you need to trust the team. So finding the right people to do this change is extremely difficult here. And then it's not just about going through the moves, knowing what the left hand has to do or the right hand. It's not about that. It's not going through the process. The process is the easy part. The difficult part is finding that functionally very good person, the fantastic tech lead, the developer that makes a difference, that really can operate in this setting, working in such teams. And so talent for us is all about that, is seeking those fantastic functional people that we are trying to attract from everywhere in the world. We got Australians to come to Dubai. We got Europeans, Indians, Emiratis. So we have a blend of about 45 nationalities, but we got them from many parts in the world. And then at the same time, how do you upskill the people that you have, the other half, so that they can operate in this setting? And I can tell you, it still is the most challenging part. These soft elements of the transformation for me are still the most difficult parts of what I'm facing here. Okay.
Very helpful. Thank you, Miguel. I think you gave the talent descriptions Sven mentioned, I think, a very good image and made it excellently clear. Do you have any advice for the CIOs of how to tackle this? Like, how did you find the best functional talent? How did you do this culture change?
It's extremely difficult. So first of all, you know that under this agile operating model, the roles change a lot. So that progression or that career progression from fantastic engineer to a manager, where you typically, most of the good engineers will fail because their minds is not a managerial mind. So the first thing was breaking that in the bank. So typically in IT, you know that you progress in the organization, and then you start in a technical role, and then you're asked to develop into managerial roles. We've broken that cycle. So we separated clearly careers for engineering, where you can actually be a senior software engineer or even a lead software engineer, which is the highest ranking, which is exactly comparable to a VP level position as a manager. So first of all, break those career paths between becoming a senior engineer, but you're still on a technical role, but you're paid the same as a VP in a managerial role, and then identify those people that really should be on managerial roles. So breaking these two things is not easy in a bank at all. So just crafting a career path for engineering in a bank or in any organization which is not a technology company, it's really hard. And convincing everybody in the organization that a senior software engineer should be paid and should be ranked as high as a VP in anywhere in the organization, it's extremely difficult. This is one of the first things. Then, of course, is seeking talent. I think again here the learning is clear. So if you advertise a role and just interview on advertising of a role, you'll not get there. So you need to really go after these people. So you have to rely on understanding where is the big data engineer that really knows about the big data platforms and so on. So who's doing this? Who would be available to move here? What people have already started a journey on cloud in a bank that would be available to come to Dubai and so on. So it's much more, it's not an advertising and they will come. It's much more, you have to look for those diamonds that are out there, and only some of them will agree to come to your organization. This is the third part, which is how do you convince a very good engineer to join Emerson BD, you know? So, and when he has offers from Google or from Amazon or from Microsoft, or how do you really convince one of these guys to come? Because believe me, the difference between an average solution architect, an average developer, and a very good engineer, solution architect, it's huge. It's huge in the organization. Again, you need these. So you really have to promote every element of what you show to these people. Is much more about you selling a job to them than they selling themselves to you, which changes completely the mindset around how you staff these positions. And it takes a lot. So from previously to COVID, even the way we with the building where IT is sitting, the way we internally, the logistics of that building and so on is completely different than all the rest of the organization. You have to really not just talk, but walk the talk on technology is important. Involvement of the CEO when required, of top management when required, to bring in the most relevant people. It's really a fight. If you finding these people and then attracting them to come to a bank is really, really hard. And it's one of my main challenges, but one of my main areas of focus.
Yeah, I found it interesting. One of the CIOs I spoke to basically also said he started the technology transformation also because he wasn't really able to find talent anymore. Yeah, so, and I'm not talking about like issues in like for COBOL or whatever. Yeah, so that for sure is anyhow there. Yeah, so he was basically saying like the way how we develop things. Yeah, so the technologies we use. Yeah, so where we are investing time, etc. Yeah, so it's not like competitive in the market anymore. Yeah, so I can't hire from the top universities. Yeah, so that's a big thing. One of the goals that he set out for himself is like, I become a talent factory. Yeah, because like Miguel was also rightfully saying, yeah, these guys have options. Yeah, so even if they join you, yeah, so retaining these people is an even bigger challenge. Yeah, so he said like, I'm 100% clear that I can hold them maybe for 2 years. Yeah, so but I need to find a factory behind that and build a factory behind that. Yeah, so that A, upskills my own people. Yeah, so and B, pulls in then others. Yeah, so because these people, yeah, so when I find one of them, yeah, so that attracts more. Yeah, so and I then build up through that a pipeline of others.
Perfect. Let's briefly shift gears because I've got a couple of questions from the audience. And someone was asking, look, Miguel, you were in a relatively good position when COVID hit, right? So now we're facing a situation of cost pressure on top of, CEOs striving to look for impact. Any advice from your experience now of where, as a CIO who has not started with the digital transformation, but now is facing the challenges, the same one you are facing, just basically starting 3 years later and with a global pandemic around it. Where should I start? What is the quickest way to impact? What is something you would be looking out for?
So I would have to say that even on the cost pressure, and again, CIOs and that are involved, so that manage technology, they know this. There is the right way to cut costs and the wrong way to cut costs. No, When we are faced with challenges on cost cutting, I really one of the things that we shouldn't compromise is to at least make it transparent on what cost cutting we are doing. So I'll give you an example. So we were fortunate, again, on the infrastructure side. One of the difficulties we had in 2017 was we were handling more than 400 combinations of technology stacks. So if you look at from the hardware, the operating system, the application server, the database, and so on, and you look at different versions of this. So because we were rushing and just buying from the vendor and putting it in the data center, we were handling about 400 different combinations of stack. No? Now, this also brings a tremendous cost to it because you have to have maintenance, support, you need to upgrade because you need to patch for security. So imagine what your life is maintaining 400 different combinations of the tech stack. Now, as part of the transformation, one of the work streams was on infrastructure was adopt cloud, simplify the tech stack. So we moved from 400 combinations to about eight different standardized combinations. Now, I was lucky because even now we are now starting to reap the benefits of that. So as I decommission this tech stack, the costs are coming down on the maintenance, AMCs, and so on. So if you're caught off foot, meaning that okay, I've not done this investment before, now I just have to cut costs. I think so as stated. So there is again no way you can go and approach your existing landscape and just say cut me 30% of this without transforming. You know that. So I think it's the moment. I think at these moments, if business doesn't, I understand the cost pressure, but if business wants to attain a different position in terms of the cost level, especially on technology, it's very, very difficult to do without investment. So my key to this would be now, given what we know already of how critical technology is, how important it is for the future of organizations, I think that this is, if you've not done it already, this is the right moment really to do these programs, to start doing this stuff, because there's no way out of it. And again, if you take them to the mistake of, okay, I will try again another round of negotiating with the vendors on the same AMC and get the 2% that they're going to give me, you're not going to get far. So the transformational cost cutting that now business need to attain will not happen without you investing on that transformation. And it is throughout. Again, agility, by focusing on pushing decision making to the teams, we're able to take layers and layers of management in IT. So currently, I am always, myself as CIO, if I count the hops to a software engineer, so to a team and a software engineer, I have 2 hops. So I just have SVP and VP. Nobody else is below an SVP except the delivery teams. So about 90% of the people on the floor are actually in front of software development tools. They are not in front of email, writing emails, or PowerPoint, writing PowerPoints. You know, it's very important. It's a good measure. So how many people are actually coding in your organization or in front of software development tools or IT operations tools? So again, in any dimension, size of the organization, AMCs for infrastructure and application, the maintenance costs of everything depends always on you doing some investment to attain another position of cost. So again, my advice to you is, okay, double down on your efforts to pitch the investment side of the equation, and then just I'm always okay. Sometimes I do that effort for the organization, which is what can I cut, which is just the negotiation part of it and being a little bit harder with the vendors and so on. But if you really don't invest, you cannot attain a much better position on the cost level.
Perfect. Miguel, you mentioned 2 already very important things you would be looking out for, right? So I don't want to ask you for KPIs, but what is it that you look for, right? One was reduce complexity. make things easier in a way. I assume automation you also mentioned because of standardized stack. So it's standardize, automate, clear. The second one I found very interesting was to say, what is the amount of people actually writing code?
Yeah.
And I wonder, is there a third or maybe even 3 other KPIs or measures that you focus on?
In all these elements, so there are many KPIs. I think for our transformation at least, so there's some that are more relevant. So again, how many teams are working agile, and what is the agile maturity of those teams? Because just a team that takes the process and executes the process probably is at maturity 1 out of 5, you know. So that is not agility. Agility is much more than that. It's the tooling, it's the process, of course, it's the tooling, it's having the CI/CD pipelines, it's having the quality, the productivity, all of that, and that comes with time. So I think around agility, how many teams are working agile and are really mature in agile and being very strict on pushing yourself on that maturity curve on agile. So for everybody in the IT organization. Then again, and if you really focus on those agile teams, and we have a metric, which is we would like to be 90% of agile teams. And you know that if you are 90%, 90% of the people in IT are actually in a team. If you do that, and the 10% are governance, security, not the security architect in the team, but just the overhead security and control and so on, IT operations. So if you do that, if you think that holy grail of 90-10, that would be fantastic. That's more on organization and operating model. On architecture, we really are looking at things like how many applications have moved to microservices, are leveraging the microservices platform. How many are integrating? We've built a standardized catalog of RESTful services that actually give you standardized access, RESTful service access to all the functionality in the core bank. So how many applications are now going through that interface and no longer using proprietary messaging systems or point-to-point interfaces and so on? And then how many applications have you moved to that standardized stack that we're talking about? And again, on infrastructure is, okay, what out of your estate, how many applications are running on the new standardized tech stack versus on the old legacy one? How many have CI/CD pipelines? How many have the right monitoring in place? Because we are automating a lot of the data center tasks. We're trying to automate them and make monitoring much easier and so on, and really rely on. So currently, for you to have an idea, to manage the full estate of the Emirates NBD 2 data centers in Abu Dhabi and Dubai for the 8 entities, I only need about 16 people at one time. So, and to do that, you really have to put a lot of automation into it, both for the jobs, but also for the monitoring and so on. So that's a very important part of it. And then on security, I think security, we didn't touch a lot on this, but again, while you are transforming, and security has to become part of the decisions that you're taking when you're doing the solution architecture and so on. So we've really tried to shift left security, meaning it's not a bolted add-on control type of function within IT. These guys go into the team. So I have security architects that go into the teams, and they form part of the non-functional requirements as we are building the features and so on. So that we've done, it's very important. So there, what we control there is actually not just the security framework and the tooling and so on that's required, but also how many teams have security architects embedded and are really taking the security decisions within the team as well. So I think in a nutshell, there are many KPIs. Again, IT is very complex. There's not one indicator, one silver bullet that resolves everything. But there are many KPIs, but these would be the most important ones.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I see we're getting to the close of the hour. So maybe as a closing thought, but first of all, thank you both for sharing it so openly and your expertise. I think it was fantastic. What I'd love to now is a relatively open question to both of you, is to say, look, given that we are now in this new norm, not fully there, but what would you be thinking or giving the audience now as an advice in this now new situation? And maybe Sven, you might start, and then Miguel, maybe you have the last words.
Super, very happy to. See, let me keep it short, given that where we are. Yeah. So, but like one of the CIOs I spoke to out of the 200 that I interviewed. Yeah. So basically, he said like this is now the time where you do this change. Yeah. So because like the upcoming new normal will be ultra competitive. Yeah. So if you don't have these things in place, yeah, so you will have a pretty tough time then. And therefore, like if you didn't start your transformation, you're probably behind because your competitor has started that. Yeah. So therefore, I see a lot of CIOs pivoting now towards this transformational change. Yeah. So or having that already underway and accelerating it. Yeah. So therefore, I think like my thought is exciting times, although it's like critical times. Yeah. So yeah. So and it's something really where we can all make a difference.
Thank you, Miguel. Last words of the sessions all belong to you, and thank you both for being here.
So the challenges for us is actually how do we accelerate, especially on the business side. We didn't touch a lot on that, but what initiatives are key on the business side to be more digital and actually to succeed in this new normal where customers approach you through your digital channels and they want to actually do everything with you via these digital channels. So accelerating that, how we can move even faster than what we've been doing. And then the second challenge is a lot of the things that we changed. For example, this agile way of working, we were on-prem, so with the teams on-prem, and really motivating teams and managing teams in that context is absolutely different to managing them in this new normal. I believe that so IT is still, the development functions are still working from home. So the software lifecycle management functions and they will keep working from home for some time, I believe. So the question then becomes, how do you motivate people? How do you keep momentum going? And then in IT, so as I told you, the staffing, talent scouting is very important. How do you do that in this new world? So before, even if we had already some interviews that were conducted remotely and so on, in the final stages, and even the onboarding of a person to the culture and so on of MSMBD, we did it in person. Now this guy may be joining us, and we never saw him except in the sofa of his home. So how do I manage this person from there, and how do I motivate him? How do I onboard him? How do I bring this team culture together for these new guys that are joining? So those are the new challenges. I think new solutions will pop up. We are still learning from the experience on the ground. It also gives us new opportunities. So, for example, we now onboarded about 20 people directly without them ever leaving the place that they had in India or in Turkey or wherever. And so it is much faster in that respect. So, and it really can tap into specific talent that would not be available to move to Dubai from one day to the other. And that may be an opportunity as well. But again, those are the key challenges now.
Perfect. Thank you, Miguel. Thank you, Sven. And thank you all for watching. Best of luck on your own endeavor and the next time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.